There we go. Focus. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. My name is Sadhana, if any of you are new here. And today we are going to look at some rather challenging decks. I have had requests to do, I don't know, like to talk about more advanced decks. And I decided to approach this topic from a different angle. And I suppose we could I call this hashtag hanged man decks. And if any of you want to do a VR to this, that would be amazing. But the other term that's thrown around a lot is rabbit hole decks, you know, decks that just really, really get you going into a challenging place. So I'm looking forward to this discussion tonight. I've got more decks than I can get to in an hour. And I also want to let you know that I'm planning to do this as a series. So I will be doing hopefully more than one a week, doing more detailed reviews and in-depth studies of a lot of these decks because I haven't done them on my channel and I've had so many requests. In the description box below, I've listed a few that I'm committed to doing because I've had umpteen requests to do videos on the Marielle and Primordial, which is newer, as well as Tarot of the Sidhe, which is one of my favorite decks. So I will be doing those for sure. So I want to say welcome. Erin was here first in the chat. So hello, and Andrew. And I think Lillian asked about the thumbnail for tonight. I do not think that is from an actual deck. That was just a graphic off of canva.com. So I'm not sure if it comes from a deck or not. So that, it was really cool. Yeah, I was so surprised that was there. And yeah, Erin was asking about decks to go deeper. So maybe tonight, Erin, you'll have a little bit of clarity after looking at some of these more challenging decks. I have to show you my tricks. Do you mean with Canva, Andrew? You're talking about with Canva? I'm happy to do that. Just clarify if that's what you mean. Hello, V. Kestrel, welcome. Of course, we don't mind lurkers. And Mallory, welcome. Hello, all the way from Singapore. And Janine, hi there. That's great. My Voice Tarot, welcome. Ellis Tarot. Okay, yeah, that is a deck that's not in my collection. I know a lot of people struggle with that one. Oh, how I work on Canva. Okay, that could be a separate video. I've never thought about doing that. I really enjoy working on Canva. Okay, so let me see who else is here. DD, Tigerly Bomb, hello. Moon Chariot, hello. Kristen Louise, hello. Which deck did you just get, Kristen? The Marielle? Is that the one that you're talking about? That's great. So with Rush Cottage, Diane, hello. Oh, Madhouse. Madhouse. Is that a typo? I've never heard of Madhouse. So I'll have to have a look for that. Advanced Oracle decks. Yes, I think there are advanced Oracle decks. Okay, so Janine, I will be doing a full video in the not too distant future on Tarot of the Sidhe. It's a deck that I have worked with intimately for some time, super comfortable reading with it. And for me, it's not really a rabbit hole deck anymore. It's a deck that I feel very, very comfortable with. All right, I'm going to get my notes and just kind of go through. So in the description box below, I put down a lot of these points already. So I want to answer the question, like, what is a hanged man deck? You know, a lot of us, when we open a deck, sometimes we, you know, I know some of you did the VR to Candy, you know, decks that we buy in a hurry. What was that one? Impulsive buying, things like that. We don't really see a full walkthrough of a deck. We see a few cards and it's like, wow, that's amazing. And then you go and you purchase the deck and the deck is like, whoa, like, what is this? It's really, really challenging. So to me, a hanged man deck is a deck that just kind of makes you scratch your head. It just doesn't feel familiar in any way. I want to kind of, hi, Jamie, welcome. I'm really curious about what this Mad House deck is. I'll have to look it up later. So, you know, it's like that kind of thing where you're scratching your head, your furrow, you know, you've got a furrow in your forehead, and it's just like, okay, I don't know where to start with this deck. And I feel like a lot of the decks I'm showing you tonight, it's exactly what they are. It's just too much. So some of the points that I made below, and I will address these as we go through the cards, is that some of the major cards might have been renamed or even reordered in the deck. Minor suits may have unfamiliar names and you may not be able to relate to those unfamiliar names. And I talked about one of the decks that I kind of regret purchasing was Forest of Enchantment. It's just a deck that I didn't really need. I have a lot of decks that kind of fit that niche, the fairy tale niche, and yeah, that Pentacle Suit of Boons was just kind of tipped me over the edge. So when you have that kind of a reaction to a deck, that's what I'm talking about. Also, sometimes the elemental associations, so the air and the fire and the water and the earth may be changed. So it might be associated with a suit that you're not familiar. So that could be a hangman deck. Sometimes I find that if the artwork it's difficult to understand the artwork, and it would be really helpful if the guidebook writer had explained it in the guidebook. And one deck that comes to mind is the Slow Tarot. That little brown book in the Slow Tarot is really doesn't do a great job. And I was so enchanted with the Slow Tarot. And I've done a video of this deck. Oh my gosh, I don't know how long I spent researching this deck. I don't know why the cards I wanted to address aren't on the top. But I looked into little details in the cards, and I spent some time researching some of the symbols. Well, here's one. This isn't the card I wanted to talk about, but I was just so blown away by her using the hippocampus for the Knight of Cups. And I just went right to my Yoga Nidra stuff with the hippocampus, and it was just so very, very clever. And I had some really good time researching the symbols. But a lot of the cards, the symbols were not familiar, like in the King of Wands. And so I had to really kind of, I felt like a research student Googling mosaic turquoise mask. And I was really challenged by the lamp that's floating up in the sky. And so this deck in general isn't really it's not a deck that I would call a hangman deck. It's a deck that you can figure out pretty quickly. But sometimes it's like that, right? The symbols they're just really hard to figure out. And the artist did not describe them in the guidebook. And then there's the issue of court cards. So what happens if the court cards are renamed, which is quite common? Sometimes they're put in a different order. So sometimes a deck may have the Knights as the first court card. It might have the the queens as the, instead of going queen, king, it'll go king, queen, and they'll often have a different name. And so sometimes that can throw you off. And then the other thing too is sometimes it appears like the colors are telling a story. And I love to work with colors. But then you start to go down this rabbit hole of, oh yeah, look at all the yellow cards. They mean this or that. And then you realize, no, there's no continuity of energy with the yellow cards or the green cards or the blue cards. And so these decks take a lot of work. And so these are some of the topics that we're going to dive into tonight. Yeah. So if there's anything that you particularly, like if there's something in the chat that I miss, would you please do me the favor of tagging me or writing the question in caps? Because I have a lot to share with you, and I'll try to make sure that I greet everybody as they come in. But if I have missed you, my apologies, and welcome to everyone who's in the background as well too. Okay. So let's kind of go in easy in the back door, if you will. And why not just start with this rabbit hole right here? This is the Dame Darcy Mermaid Tarot. And I have done 2 videos on this deck. And I love the Tales of Alice, and I spent some time doing what now her name is Karen Mahoney did in the Baba Studios Alice deck, and that was to put the cards in the order that they appear in the story. So one of the things that makes this deck particularly challenging to read is that Alice appears as a little child. So you see in some of the cards, she's really, really young. And then in other cards, she's a lot more mature. And then in this card, in the Empress, she looks like a mature woman. And this is just the artistic license. And so we have the same character appearing with many different visage, if you will. And the same thing happens with the queens and the kings. And so it makes it sometimes makes that kind of confusing. If you are not familiar with this story, then it makes it really hard sometimes to figure out what the heck is going on and why this hand overhead of the white rabbit is a 5 of Wands. And it's very clever, and I love these Alice decks and I enjoy using them, but that's because I know the Alice stories inside and out. So at this point of the story, Alice has eaten she's either eaten or drank something, and it has made her so big that she is stuck inside a house and she can't get out because she's so big. She's the full size of the interior of the house, and so her hand is reaching out of the window, grabbing for the rabbit. So if you go to the story of Alice, you know, sometimes it fits and sometimes it doesn't really fit. Like this walrus and the carpenter card for the 7 of Pentacles, to me, doesn't work at all. You know, the walrus and the carpenter, yeah, they walk slowly along the beach and they take their time and it's a really long poem and all of that. But the oysters aren't growing. The oysters get eaten. You know, this is a kind of a cannibalistic poem, right? They eat them live. And by the end of the poem, there's no oysters left. You know, and we do see mad King of Cups. We do see King of Cups cards that represent more of a, perhaps an addiction to alcohol, or perhaps violence can sometimes be the shadow of the King of Wands. But it's just kind of weird, you know, sometimes when you're trying to fit a story into the tarot, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. And it can be really difficult if you don't know, what's going on in the background. And like here with the Four of Cups at the very beginning of Alice in Wonderland, when she's falling down the hole, she's just kind of curious, right? This isn't anything to do with depression or anything like that. She's just having this kind of moderately scary experience falling down a rabbit hole. And then over here, you know, actually, I shouldn't spend this long on each of these decks. Let me just do one more. So this is at the very beginning of Through the Looking Glass. And so that's when she goes through the mirror. And so this is the Eight of Cups. And it really kind of sort of doesn't fit. So this is one of the issues with story decks is that it's hard, right? And this is the same that happens with decks that have pre-existing art. Sometimes it's very, very challenging to make the artwork fit to the tarot deck. And sometimes it's done really well and sometimes not so much. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to scan down here. Oh, not that way. There we go. I do not have the Tarot of the 1001 Nights. Yeah, it's just, and then Kristen's explaining what happens in the story. And they pelt her. Yes, they throw things into the window. No, they throw them down the chimney, don't they, Kristen? That's what it is. Yeah. Okay. So let's just kind of, I've got so many decks on the table here. And what I want to talk about next is changing the, okay, hopefully I can do this. Changing the name of the major arcana. And sometimes that really works and it fits. This is the Chemonette Tarot by Eden Gallanter. And I've shown this deck a few times on my channel. And I will put all of the decks in the description box below with the links afterwards. And so here for the Hermit, this has been renamed Time. And it has a very subtle, different energy. And it can really, for me, I mean, this is a deck that I've worked very closely with. It really opens a whole other window and experience into the Hermit card. But then sometimes it just makes it really, really difficult. And you do feel like you're falling down a rabbit hole. This card was also changed, right? The Angel. So the Judgment card, which makes sense, but it does really put a different flavor on the card. Yeah. So the other thing, and what I'm going to go through this deck by deck because I have way too many decks open. I was going to go do it by topic. And if you are clever enough to do a VR and just do it by topic, that would be amazing. But I've got way too many decks out here for that. So the other thing with this deck that feels very rabbit hole-ish is that, so this is the Eight of Wands. And we have certain expectations, right? That the energy of the Eight of Wands is something with swiftness and messages and messengers. And this deck just goes in a whole other direction. And Eden writes a beautiful guidebook. And she explains every single card and you understand the energy. It's just a matter of getting to know the deck and reading the guidebook multiple times. This, for example, is the Six of Wands, which looks nothing like a Six of Wands. And this has more to do with the continuity of the story through the deck, which is very, very clever. Yeah, here's another one. So this one is the Five of Pentacles. And if you read the story of the Chemonette Tarot, this is the deck here. it makes sense, but it is not something that you could necessarily read intuitively. Yeah. Hello, Darcy. Welcome. Welcome. And then there's other ones that are completely, you know, you can figure out. So this is other part of this deck is really clever, is that this is the King of Swords here. I believe it might be the Knight of Swords, but I think it's the King. And in this Eight of Swords, he is very cleverly using the swords to make his way up through this crevice in the rocks. And so you can stretch the meaning close to an RWS, but it's part of a story, and it's part of the uniqueness of this deck unto itself. And so it does take a little bit of work. And here's one more example. So this is the Death card, and this little boy in the Death card actually is the Hierophant, who's called the Priest in this deck. And so in her guidebook, she connects these two cards together. And then here, this is actually the High Priestess who's sitting with the Hierophant. And so she weaves all these very, very clever stories connecting the cards in the deck. And it makes for something really, really magical, mystical. Yeah. And so these are not by any means decks that I don't like. They're decks that are just a little more challenging to work with. Claustrophobia is triggered by the Eight of Swords. Yeah, it's really, really something. So this is the Falarcos Tarot. Maybe the H, maybe it's Polarcos. Please forgive my pronunciation, by Carmen Sorrenti. This is a huge rabbit hole deck for a lot of people. This is the Magician, which has two people on the card. Two people. And the guidebook does not give you much help. And rumor has it that Carmen is writing another book. This is the Emperor, which to me looks more like a shaman than an emperor. And that's one card that I find a little bit confusing. And this is the Hierophant in this deck. The whole idea with the Falarcos Tarot is that it is set, it's part of the, you have to go back in time, a long ways back to when there were dream temples. And the mystics did healing ceremonies in these dream temples, sometimes in the caves off the Mediterranean. And so the whole idea with this deck is that you're stepping into a dream. It's about, these are great cards to journey with, but it's a deck that you really need to take your time with. So this deck also changes the name of the suits. So Wands is Sparks. And here we have the Five of Sparks. And we have this couple very energetically and happily dancing. Down here, we have two snakes and a frog. So it takes on a completely different energy than what you would see in any RWS. This one gets me every time. I have to read the guidebook when this Four of Spirals comes up. This is a tale of Persephone. We've got fire in the voice here. This is spirals. This is pentacles. And every time I read this, I just don't get it. I really don't. I just need to go back and, you know, do a whole journey through the deck again. There's black and white cards for the aces. The aces are blindfolded and then they're mirrored in the tens, which is really, really clever. Yeah. And then the other thing this deck does is it changes. So the pages are dreamers. And the first court card in this deck are the knights. And the knights are called trails. I don't know if you can see that on the bottom right corner. And the trails actually lead you into your journey. They lead you into your dreams. So the trails, the knights, are the first court card in this deck. And then the kings and queens are kings and queens. But here, for example, is the Queen of Cups. She has a cat, right? So that could be confusing as well, too. She's not the Queen of Wands. She's the Queen of Cups. Anyway, a really amazing deck. This deck does, I trimmed this deck and I also edged it. So I believe this is a very easy one. It's just got a border on the back, so you can just follow the edge of the back. Yeah. So yeah, that is the Falarcos Tarot. How are we doing there? I feel some tarot decks are Hanged Man decks because I feel they would be better as an oracle. Yes, I think that's an important consideration. And I know Dawn Michelle Boho Tarot, she's all over that, right? So when you don't relate to a tarot deck, what do, right? Do you cut off the words and make an oracle, or do you try to make it work? So these are all kind of important questions. This is the Guardian Tarot by Beth Salonen. This is an older deck. This is a deck that creeps a lot of people out. It's a tree deck. It's very the trees look ghostly. Yeah. Okay. So this is the Knight of Wands. And the one thing when I look at this card, I love the queerness of this Knight of Wands. It makes me happy, really, really happy. But the confusing part about this is the Knight of Wands is in the moon. You would expect the Knight of Wands to be in the full sunlight. And so we have the sun around the flames around the face, but the Knight of Wands is in the moon. There's all kinds of craziness in this deck. So this is the Magician with the Ouija board and a pendulum. And I can kind of sort of work with that. Here is the Six of Pentacles. Six of Pentacles is about kindness to all beings, which is a little bit of a reach from an RWS, but a beautiful extension of that meaning. Yeah. Here's another kind of, so this, I know this throws me off a little bit, and that's when the elements are shifted up with the suits. This is the King of Pentacles. And so we have lots of water, which doesn't feel very pentacleish to me. So this is why I'm putting this deck in this category. Here is a really kind of bizarre card. This is the Six of Wands. And in this card, the tree is emerging from the forest to become human, and there's clothing that's appearing on the tree. And this is a card of letting go of your attachments and kind of moving on. It has very, very different energy than the victory, the success of a traditional Six of Wands. So yeah, these cards fell on the floor just before I started filming. So that's all you're going to get from this deck. So let me know if you have any questions. My Voice Tarot, are you talking about the Falarcos Tarot? Are you going back to that deck? Is that where you were? Hello, Inquisitive Tarot, Sheila. Welcome. This is one of my favorite decks, and I know a lot of people do struggle with this deck. This is Tarot of the She by Emily Carding, came out about 10 years ago. This one is, the sides are trimmed on this deck. There are only two changes in the major arcana, the Elder for the Hierophant and Pan for the Devil, which happens a lot. Oh, Guardian. Okay, my voice. Yeah. So, and we see this in a lot of the Celtic decks, right? We see either Cernunnos or Pan. So this is not so so different with these name changes. So that's fairly easy. With the aces in this deck, they're simply given the title of the suit. So the suit of fire is the warriors, and so the ace of fire is simply the warrior. The ace of air is simply the dreamer, and so forth. A lot of the cards are very easy to read if you take your time. The artwork is super busy and you need to pause and slowly get to know the deck. But here is a card that is a little tricky. So this is the Two of Fire. Power Awakes, which has a really different energy from a Two of Wands. And so when you're working with this deck, there's a real need to give it its own space and not. I think that's what makes some of these decks really challenging, is because we want to make it what it isn't. And if we can just let it be what it is, then we can grow with it, right? And learn with it and work with it. Here is the Dreamer. So Dreamer is, now I'm confused. Sorry. A Dreamer is air. Yeah, so air. There's a suit of air in this deck is really interesting. So this is Dreamer 3. So 3 of Swords is called soul loss. And the keywords on this deck are magnificent. I see my name. Yes, I have pulled the Telluric Tarot out tonight. I'm not sure if we'll get to it. Yeah. And so this is really interesting. So actually, no, that one fits. This actually fits more of an RWS. A coward betrays. So 7 of Swords. This is the one I wanted to show you. This is one of my favorite 10 of Swords cards ever, ever, ever. And here the sword is piercing the third eye chakra and the blood is rushing out of the third eye chakra. I just find this really completely enlightening. Jamie says that's true with most things. Let me just read this. If we can let things be what they are versus wanting anything to fit a certain spot, right? So important. And so the thing is that our tendency, if we are collecting decks, is to, I mean, this is a beautiful, beautiful keywords for the 4 of Swords, restoration. And instead of lying down on a cold cement bed, this she is being restored through sun, through the energy of the sun. So when I do the full, I don't think I finished my previous sentence. When I do the full study review of this deck, I'm also going to include the Moon Oracle by the same, not by Emily Carding, but it is the energy of the she, as well as the She book by John Matthews. So that's going to be a really fun video to shoot. Yeah. Okay. We doing okay there? How would you guys do with a deck with no system, no titles on the cards? Well, wouldn't that be an oracle deck, Andrew? Isn't that what oracle decks are? All right, I just need to take a breath. That is the next deck. So it is, when you buy it, it's not tarot shape, it's oracle shape. So I highly recommend trimming it to tarot shape. It just works well. And my big, you may have heard me say this before, my big concern in trimming it is when you trim it, you cut a little bit of the glyph off the back, which energetically is kind of not a good thing to do, but the deck reads really, really well for me. And so I don't think that the She of are angry about that. Okay. Paper Moon, you trimmed yours as well too. Hello, Paper Moon. I don't think I said hello to you. Okay, so just gonna check. There we go. So the next deck I want to share with you is one that I've never given the time of day, is the Stolen Child Tarot. And I bought this on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, I can't remember. And I bought it because I love the poem. And this is based on the poem, The Stolen Child. And also this deck is based on the William Blake Tarot. And so eventually one day I will purchase the William Blake Tarot and also try to, while I know it's available in PDF online, it'd be nice to get an old copy of the book for the William Blake Tarot. It's out of print, or it's very expensive to get right now. So this deck does everything differently. So the suit of trees is a suit of oak, which makes sense. But none, I would say 90, maybe 80% of the cards are extremely difficult to read intuitively. You kind of need to sit with them and just, I mean, that's a beautiful, beautiful King of Oak. And they're all children, right? Children are animals. This is the King of Air. So Zephyrs is air. Here's the Queen of Zephyrs. This might actually be a beautiful deck for you, my voice, you know, who connect so deeply to poetry and animals. Yeah. And here we have, you know, very, just, you know, the kind of illustrations that I saw in children's books when I was a child, right? We have the child inside the animal. It's really quite extraordinary, but it's very, very hard to read intuitively. Love, love, love. I don't want to shoot. This is the Chariot card. And, you know, the thing I love about this Chariot card is that it's a turtle, right? And the Chariot doesn't have to be a motorcycle. The chariots can move at all different kinds of speed. And this one is probably going to be difficult to see, but this is the Strength. Actually, these cards make perfect sense to me. I shouldn't be showing you these ones. I'm trying to show you cards that make the deck difficult to read, but they're so beautiful. This is, so the child is here, kind of nestled in the four paws of the bison. Really beautiful. And here, instead of a star, we have a starfish. So yeah, it's just, this is the Magician, for example. It's a rabbit hole deck. It really is. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But it's a deck that would take, you know, if you went away on summer vacation and you took it with you and you had a printed copy of the PDF, you'd probably figure it out over the summer, that kind of thing. Okay. I shared this deck with you. This is the Stunning Tarot by Jonasa Jaus. I was looking for the box. I don't have the box here. Stunning Tarot by Jonasa Jaus. J-O. You can spell it. It's a J. Jonasa Jaus. J-A-U-S. The same creator as the Jonasa Jaus Tarot. This deck has really taken me some time to get to know. And I pulled this card recently in a spread, and I just sat with it for the longest period of time. So this suit is connected to Egyptian mythology, the suit of Pentacles. And I'm fully aware of Medusa, Kundalini energy of snakes, but I could not really find the connection with Egyptian mythology and snakes, which was a mystery to me. And then I just really started thinking about the Shiva So in the Hindu mythology, in the yogic teachings, Shiva has snakes in his hair, has dreadlocks, and those snakes are actually the river Ganga, the Ganges River. And the Ganges River is anthropomorphized as divine feminine energy. And so Shiva's hair is divine feminine energy. And so there's some connection here with reaching for spirituality. And so if we think of the Five of Pentacles with the church in the background and the people out front in the cold, it's like that only card that connects there's like this obvious, line between the people and the church, or the divinity and the people. And so this is where I was going with this card, but it really, really has challenged me, this deck. Yeah. So the second edition of this deck is available now. This is the Seven of Swords. This is the Four of Swords. Very, very similar. Very similar. So that's another thing that makes it really difficult. I'm showing you the challenging cards. There's so many cards in this deck that I love, love, love. This is the Lover's card. Go figure. And this Wheel of Fortune, I'm not entirely crazy about. So here we have a baby, presumably an embryo. The umbilical cord, the plant is coming up here. And then I'm presuming we have the mother in the flower up here. And that's the Wheel of Fortune. In the Six of Swords, the mermaid's pregnant. Interesting, huh? So there's tons of cards that I just adore in this deck, and I may have shown you some of them, but let me show you one just because. This is the Ace of Wands, which I love. This is the Hermit, which is fantastic. So yeah, so that's the stunning tarot. It's really, really taken me time to get to know that one for sure. Okay. Let me put that over there. All right. Andrew, Well-Tempered Claire, mentioned the Telluric Tarot by Lunaria Gold. This is the Telluric Tarot. And this deck came out this year. And I purchased this deck because I loved the artwork. This is the guidebook. So you get full color. And I'll show you one of the pages when we get to the cards. I did not have a crystal oracle deck or a crystal tarot in my collection. And I loved the artwork, and that is why I purchased it. It is very, very difficult to work with, and I'm going to try to explain. So this is something that is completely bizarre. How can I show you this? Okay, there's so many things with this deck. So there's an inconsistency with the color of the fonts. There's an inconsistency. So in the guidebook, the fonts are a certain color, but on the cards, they're a different color. And so it's really hard to read. This is one of the few cards that you can figure out intuitively that it is the Hanged Man. It has the number 12. The problem is that there's also 4 other 12 cards in the deck that look very, very similar. And so you have 5 12 cards. And you have 5, here's the 13 cards. So you have 5 13 cards. 13, 13, 13, 13, 13. And so it really does take some time to figure out which card is death. If you know your crystals, you can probably guess that the ghost pipe is death. But the color of the fonts is the difference in the color of the fonts is so subtle that it's really hard. 13s are the queens, by the way. Yeah, so it makes this deck a little tricky to read. Jamie says you're using it as an oracle. Yeah, it could have been so awesome. It could have been so awesome. There could have been a symbol. There could have been a better job with the color of the fonts or something, because I really feel like the guidebook is well written. So let me just, I'm just going to pick a random card, not a court card. I'm just going to pick a random card. There you go. Silver and Cassava. Okay. Okay. Emotion. Oh, and the suits, by the way, are, so soul are the majors, and emotion is cups, and drive is fire. Mind is swords, obviously, and domain is pentacles. And so here we are at the 7 of Pentacles, silver and cassava. And so there's this lovely index in the guidebook that you can quickly go to, and it tells you the page number. And there's not a lot of information, but there's enough to kind of help you. So just kind of wrap your head around what 7 of Pentacles is. Silver is the most reflective and conductive of metals, has been highly prized since prehistoric times and used for countless applications. As a precious metal and currency, it has historically and symbolically been regarded as second only to gold. Cassava is a vital source of nourishment and staple food to numerous tropical cultures due to its high starch content and resistance to drought and poor soil. Testifying to cassava's reliable sustenance, its Yu language name means there is life. And the oracle messages, diligent planning and considerable efforts have been invested. Work isn't over yet. Your dedication is building a valuable foundation for success. So she is linking the value of silver, I guess, to the sustenance of the cassava. You may be feeling the toil and some measure of impatience, yet be assured that strong roots have been planted and your continued investment is feeding them. You will soon see the first fruits of your labor. So the guidebook is quite good, but it's you have to go back to it all the time. It's really, really tricky. Yeah, it's a great study deck for sure for crystals and plants. And I saw an interview on Kash's channel with Lunaria, and Lunaria is very, very qualified to be writing about this stuff. Like, she knows her stuff, and the gems that she drew are accurately the gems are in their crystalline structure are accurately drawn. So yeah. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna fit in a couple more. I have like so many. So here's another question. Why do I have so many of these challenging decks? What is it that has, driven me to them? Because I have a lot. Like, I have at least another 12 here that I could show you, which I'm not going to. But yeah. Now this one, Oh gosh. Sorry, guys. The Marielle. The beautiful thing about the Landscape of the Abyss, the guidebook that goes with the Marielle, is that there's a lot of repetition, a lot. And so if you take your time with the Marielle and you read the Marielle guidebook over and over, and not just in one block of time, but, you know, do an initial study with it and then come back to it in 3 months or come back to it in a year. Every time you read it, you'll start, some of those myths and metaphors and legends, they're going to start to sink in. It's very repetitive. And Marie does a great job of building, right? Building the story. And Odin is one of the myths that she repeats over and over and over through the book. And here in the Two of Pentacles, the Two of Discs, which, you know, usually we have a figure balancing on a tightrope or some kind of balancing is involved or juggling. We have 2 different colored coins on closed eyes, and one is representing an external gaze and one is representing an internal gaze. And so that's where the balance comes in here, from having that balance with internal and external focus. I mean, this is a deck of absolute brilliance. And I'm just going to show you a few cards. So this is the Four of Discs. We have this beautiful mountain scene here. There is nothing clinging about this card. This is expansiveness, right? And then here in the Five of Discs, we have the scene from the Four of Discs in the heart of the man here. And so in the Five of Discs, he has captured the energy, this divine energy, into his heart space. I mean, it's just so very, very, very clever. Paper Moon says, challenging decks cause us to find other aspects from different artists. Yeah, it just opens up so much. Another myth that she, not really, it's a myth. Another thing she goes over multiple times in her guidebook is the evolution of Enoch to the Archangel Metatron. And here in the Magician, she talks about the cube here and how we are being handed our soul, basically. It's so beautiful. And I love the way that she brings Archangel Metatron into this deck multiple times. Another thing that I really, really love, and I will do a full video on this deck because I don't know why I never have. What did I want to look at? Oh yeah, that's another good thing to share. Okay, so this is the Ace of Swords, and here we have the eagle who is bound to either bound to something. It's really hard to tell. Maybe bound to a tree. And in the solar plexus of the eagle here is just on fire. You know, it's just full of energy. And so this Ace of Swords is about that bursting forth. You know, this eagle, how this eagle got bound, I have no idea. But it's about that potential energy of surging forth. It's so very, very clever. She also talks a lot about the stages of the sun signs. So the eagle is one of the stages of Scorpio, and so she talks about the evolution, in this case of Scorpio, and connects that to the further evolution to the phoenix. And these stories and these teachings are woven in so cleverly. Yeah, can't say enough about this deck. One of the other cool things too is, I don't know if you've noticed all the green eyes in this deck. There's green eyes everywhere. And one of the fun things to do is to pull out all the cards with the green eyes and to really start to kind of dive into the energy of the green eye and what that green eye represents. Yeah, Enoch was the first man to ascend to heaven. Oh, so just this deck just gives me chills. So here in the Seven of Wands and the Seven of Cups, we have the wolves that appear in the Chariot card. And so while this deck is very different than any other deck that you have, if you start to slowly work with it and slowly build the story, it's so beautiful and it's so well done. Let's just see what Dee Dee is saying here. Yes, there are a lot of portals. The other aces are angels. And this is the only ace that's not an angel. But all the aces have a similar something on their solar plexus, or a little bit lower down on their bodies. Yeah. Okay. The first video that I'm going to be doing is on the Primordial, which we're working with in the Facebook group. And if you're not a member of the Facebook group, you're welcome to join us. We're doing all kinds of fun things. It's a small little group. It hasn't grown very big yet. Just started it this year. And yeah, so we're using this for our weekly readings right now. So there are some name changes and some big differences. This was a card that came up in the reading last week. This is the Strength card, 11. And the way that it is described, it's called Creativity. And the way that it's described in the guidebook makes it sound very much like a Temperance card. Yeah. And then there's the Judgment card. So it's an extremely different system. The suit of swords is called the suit of blood. And it is not connected in any way to the suit of swords. It's a very primal root chakra kind of energy. The other difference is that this one, like we were looking at with the Telluric Tarot, the court cards are 11, 12, 13, and 14. So this is 14. This is the King of Blood. That's a really, and so there's an 11 card. The yellow cards are the suit of Pentacles. One of the extraordinary things in this deck is that there are suits within suits, or there's themes within the numbers. So all of the 3 cards in this deck are connected to the metaphor of the mask, which is really, really well done. I'm just going to go to Joseph's comment. Just finish off with the Marielle here. Do you think Marielle's depth is such that you have to relearn? Oh, completely. Yes, you have to relearn everything. It's completely different. Completely different. That's why I'm calling it a Hanged Man deck. It's going to take you down a rabbit hole, and there are very few cards where you're going to go, okay, yeah, I kind of see an RWS meaning here. Very, very few. I would say maybe not even 25%. So you definitely need to spend time relearning. And this deck that we're looking at right now is exactly the same. It is, it's just a whole different can of worms. And I'm just really intrigued with the energy of how all the threes have a really clear theme and so forth. I just wanted to show you this one card. Oh my goodness, I thought I had it on top. Where is it? I'm just kind of blown away. And so this is the why I'm doing this one first. Oh, here it is. I've got them out, got it out for sure. So this is the ace. And here's another example of something completely different. The green cards. So these are pentacles. These are wands. The green card is called, the greens are nature. And the ace of nature, the ace of wands, is about tapping into the roots. It's about recognizing the stones in the earth and how the rocks and how the actual earth itself supports everything, and how we use the earth to create houses and so forth. And it's very, very different. This is the 5 of wands. So here we have a card of balance. We have the gorilla with a rock on its head. Anyway, this is the card that I wanted to find. So I'll just put it on its own here so you can see it. So this is a monolith. And here we have a figure in prostration before the monolith. And this is the 7 of wands. So normally in a 7 of wands, we see a defensive body language. And here in this 7 of wands, we see supplication, right? Reverence, deep, deep reverence for the earth. It takes a lot of time to learn new systems. Yeah, so it is. It's a commitment. And this is why if there is a deck that's a little different that you go like, ooh, that's really beautiful. You know, it's important that you don't go and purchase 6 of them all at the same time, which is one of our, I think, tendencies. So we're at the hour. I would like to, let's see if there's anything else I want to show you. Are there, let me put my face back on the screen. So like I said, I have a whole bunch more decks here, but I don't think we really need to go through a whole bunch more. What I want to do is I want to start to unpack some of these decks and to go through and do some detailed videos, and then I can share with you some of my strategy for what to do with a deck that isn't an RWS and how I go about doing that. And it really doesn't take that long if you kind of have a plan for kind of unpacking the challenging decks. And also, we were saying earlier, I don't know if you were here, if everybody was here, I think Jamie commented, and that is, if we can give those kind of decks their space and let them be what they are and not try to make them something else. You know, a lot of people, and even Marie White, you know, she talks in the Landscape of the Abyss, the guidebook for the, I thought I had it here. I guess I don't. The guidebook for the Marielle. She says something to the effect of that this deck is built in respect for the Thoth, the RWS, and the Tarot de Marseille. And so there are aspects of all of those in this deck. And I love this last little paragraph before she goes on. It's called Perfect Ambiguity. And that's just it's just a beautiful way to approach this kind of stuff, right? You just got to let it go and just let it be what it is, because there is some wisdom. There's some reason that you've been drawn to this challenging deck. And so give it space, give it time. And if it overwhelms, pack it up, put it away, and don't sell it. You know, give it some time and then come back to it and see if the second kick at the can is any easier than the first one. Okay. I just want to reply to Emmy. Okay, so yeah, Aaron and Emmy are chatting here. Yeah, I don't find, yes, it's closer to Tarot de Marseille than RWS for sure, because she does a lot of she talks about numerology throughout the deck. And so the numerology plays in to the deck. And I believe Julianne Victoria a couple of years ago did a great video on the Marielle. And she talks about it as a Tarot de Marseille for sure. And the way that this guidebook is laid out is with, like, you get all the aces and then the twos and then the threes. And she talks about the energy of the numbers. So that's integral to the deck. But I think it's so much, it's not a Tarot de Marseille by any means. You know, Tarot de Marseille is a pretty unique structure. But I think if the question is, does it have more qualities of one than the other? Yes, it has more qualities of the Tarot de Marseille, but it's definitely its own thing. Yes, Sacred Seed. Now, she's not making videos anymore, but she has some beautiful videos on the Marielle Tarot. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Moon Chariot. Good question, Well-Tempered Claire. And I think the answer is no. No. Hello, Powen. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. It would have to be a very simple oracle deck, you know, perhaps an oracle deck that yeah, very good question. Very good question. I don't think I have done deck pairing videos with any of these decks, because these decks have so much going on in them. So much. I believe, okay, I'm going to take that back. So this deck, one of my favorite pairing videos of all time was pairing this with Tarot of the Tree, not Tarot of the Trees, Soul Trees Oracle cards. The colors, I wish I had it here. Yeah, this is one of my all-time favorites. Guardian Tarot and Soul Trees Oracle. Amazing combination. And so if you find it, you find it. But I think it's a little more challenging to pair these decks with an oracle deck. Your favorite deck with aliens. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with that for tonight. Yeah, Jamie, Wandering Mountain Bardic Path. These decks are all really complex. And so I wanted to do this introductory video and to let you know that I'm going to start to unpack this on my channel in pre-recorded videos, not in live, because I need to focus, right? Focus on what I'm saying and what I'm sharing and how I'm delivering it. And I'm not necessarily going to just show the deck that's the topic of conversation. I'm going to bring in other decks as well to kind of bring my point home and try to make them more teaching videos than deck reviews. That's my intention. I have a couple of announcements. Yes, soul cards would be okay, but you know what? Here's my question, Soledad. Does it even need it? Does it even need it? So that's a question. So my announcements are just two. So tomorrow I'm going to be on Jen's Science to Soul Tarot and Transformation. She's doing 2 videos, two group chats with those of us that did the Gratitude Challenge 2021. And I'll be live on her channel tomorrow if you want to check that out. Jen's Science to Soul Tarot and Transformation. And I guess my next question is, so in the description box below, I put down that I'm going to do Primordial, Tarot of the Sidhe, and the Marielle. And of the decks that I've shown you tonight, which decks, I'm asking you now, or if you're watching this in the playback, which decks would you like me to dive into a little bit more, like to do a full video on? Because it's going to take me some time to do videos on all of these. Okay, so I just want to kind of throw that out there. So thanks for joining me tonight. And it's kind of deep, right? It's hard. I just need to see what Paper Moon is saying here. Yeah. Oh, and yes, Jamie will be on the next day. So there's 2 videos that Jen is doing. So Wandering Mountain Bardic Path will be on the following day. Paper Moon. Oh, for sure. With a bit of time, you can do anything. For sure. No, it doesn't have to be the ones I've showed because I've got like another 12 here that I didn't show you. So for sure. Good night, my voice. Can anybody help with which deck had the 6 of Pentacles? Okay. Aaron, which one are you talking about? Yes, I can do. Look at my bag for Dust to Onyx. I just got a shipment from Bubba Studios, and I ordered 2 bags. And this is my bag for my large Dust to Onyx, because I don't like the big boxes, and so I got this big bag. Yes, I will do Dust to Onyx. I will do Dust to Onyx for sure. Yeah, the court cards in Dust to Onyx just haunt me. They just make me cry. I just feel so connected with them. Yes, I will be doing Tarot of the Sidhe. And okay. So Aaron said, which deck had the 6 of Pentacles? And then I'm not sure if Aaron got his question answered. So I have no idea. I don't have Janet's Mystical Dream Tarot. But that's good to know. And, you know, you go ahead and throw some decks out there. I've got so many to do. I'm probably not going to purchase any, but that doesn't mean that down the road, I won't be purchasing them. So for example, when I do my deep dive with the Stolen Child, I'm going to make sure I have the William Blake Tarot in hand, because I think that's important to understanding that deck. So, you know, you never know. Say I'm not going to buy, but who knows what happens. The one hugging the horse. We've looked at so many cards tonight. The one, just a second. It was near the beginning, right? Oh, it's the Guardian Tarot. The Guardian Tarot. The one hugging the horse. William Blake. Why are you putting William Blake in capital letters? Did I say the wrong name? Did I say Robert Blake or something? Dust to Onyx, I purchased through Courtney's website. So there's she has her own website, and I purchased it through her website. Yeah. No, this tarot is based loosely on the William Blake Tarot. And I've already read a few times there's the multi-page PDF on the William Blake Tarot. It is fascinating. And so I've already started to study that when I first got the Stolen Child. So eventually, when I do a video or I do a bit of a deep dive into the Stolen Child, I will purchase the William Blake Tarot and look at the William Blake Tarot as I'm looking with the Stolen Child Tarot. That's what I'm saying. Okay. And Joseph, you guys going to sit with the Guardian tonight. Yeah, it's very, very cool. Oh, okay. Okay. So this is so confusing. So Aspasia says it's W.B. Yeats. Yes. So this deck is inspired by the poem by W.B. Yeats. Yes. Okay. So that's why I bought the deck, because I love the poem. And the underlying philosophy of the deck is based on the William Blake Tarot. It's very complicated. There's a lot going on in this box. So, yeah. So I hope that's clear. Okay, so I really am going to go now. Thank you so much for being here. And I will see some of you on Jen's channel tomorrow. And I'm hoping to have the first segment or episode 2 of the Hangman decks up at some point this weekend. Okay, so stay well. Thanks for hanging out with me. Be kind to one another.